What's up, guys and gals? Welcome back to the Nerdcastle for the next episode of the Nerdcastle Q&A, where you and I hang out for a little bit and just talk about stuff. You send me questions, I send you answers, everybody's happy. So, let's get started straight off. We got a lot of questions to hit today. I think that there's some good ones. I kind of tried to mix up the lighter stuff with the heavier stuff and just see what kind of weird mix I could get in here. And I think it's going to work out. I think this is going to be a good episode. I'm not totally sure, but we'll try it out and we'll see what happens. So the first question is from NST Harlequin. Do you have a passport? I do not. No passport. Honestly, not a whole lot of places to go when you're in California. I guess you can go up to Canada or you go down to Mexico. And those are the only real two places you would need a passport for. And either way, it's like a 13-hour trip in either direction, 16-hour trip in either direction, depending. And so anyways, don't really have a passport because there's not a ton of places to go from California unless you jump on a plane. And unfortunately, plane tickets kind of expensive, and so I just don't even think of those as like a solution. So I'm just like, meh. I think I was having a conversation with my girlfriend the other day about she wanted to travel somewhere, and we were looking at plane tickets, and I was just like, this hurts my soul. Just looking at the number, I can hear my debit card going, yeah! And just like falling over flaccid on the floor. So, nope, don't have a passport. I should probably get one. I know a couple of people have tried to talk me into getting one, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet. Noah Hicks asks, from kitty to cat, what is your favorite type of cat? I really like any of the ones with smushy ass faces, like where they have like the kitty face and you go, nyah, and then they're all like squished up like Persian cats. Adorbs, super adorbs. Like if you got like a Persian mixed with like a Scottish fold, that would be cray cute. That would be like out of this world cute. I also like Norwegian forest cats, Siberian forest cats. I like the bigger ones like Maine Coons and stuff like that too. I've always wanted to have one of the big, I don't even know what they're called. They're kind of like big sphinx looking cats that are like, they might be called sphinxes, I don't know. But they're huge. They're like enormous. I don't know if I'm getting the right cat breed. But there's cats that are like the size of Australian shepherds that you can get from breeders and stuff. It's just like I never do that because there's millions of them at the shelter and I'd rather just go like adopt one. Or find one in the paper from a person whose cats accidentally had kittens and they're just going to take them to the shelter anyways unless people adopt them. So usually I just go and adopt. Actually, I don't think I've ever bought a cat in my entire life. Ollie cost like $5. When I got there, they were like, hey, you want a kitten? And I was like, yeah. And they were like, $5. And I was like, oh, that seems like, I mean, there's other kittens in the paper for free. I guess I got a $5 on me. I mean, hey, there you go. I guess I'm already here. I already drove all the way out here, so I guess I'll give you $5 for the cat. Whatever. Like, I don't know. But anyways, I don't normally buy cats. I don't think I've ever bought a cat, except for, I guess, Ollie counts as a transaction since he was $5. But they said they were going to take him to the shelter the next day if people didn't adopt him, so they seemed like they were pretty rushing on it. They were rushing pretty hard. Noah Max says, would you rather be shot in the leg or stabbed in the chest? Definitely shot in the leg. Although it kind of, there's a lot of questions here, like with a 22 or like with a 45. There's a lot of questions here that I think are a little bit ambiguous. I mean, getting stabbed sucks though, so I'd rather not do that. Getting shot, that's kind of like a gray area for me. So I'd be like, I got stabbed in the leg with a box knife that I was working with one time and it slashed my leg open. I had a bunch of stitches. And it wasn't terrible because when it happens, like your adrenaline is going and you're just like, oh! And because your adrenaline's going, it doesn't hurt for like 5 minutes. And then it's funny because you get like a big gash from the cut and it doesn't bleed at first. It's like your body is just in shock. It's like, what the hell? And then all of a sudden blood's just like blah, 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 out of it all over the place. I had to like wrap it up in gauze and duct tape it because I didn't want to go to the hospital because it's too expensive. And so I duct taped it. I packed it with like gauze that I put like an alcohol and everything. And then I wrapped it for a little while. I had to change it like 6 times a day because it kept bleeding through. Bled all over my bedding. It sucked. It sucked. And so I think I would go with the thing that I don't know rather than the thing that I already know. Lit Jitsu asks, hey Splat, in honor of the Halloween season, what is your favorite horror film? And what horror film made your sphincter clench the hardest in fear and discomfort? There was a Japanese film called Infection that really stuck with me. Like, that's the one film. I've seen loads and loads of horror movies because I'm a horror fan, and I rarely remember like any of them because they're all kind of just interchangeable. But I think Infection was the one that I remember the best. That was just, it wasn't even like a scary movie either. It was just like a really swelteringly, smotheringly uncomfortable film where it was just like nothing good happens the entire time. Everybody's going crazy, and it's a wild movie. Actually, if you haven't seen it, I'd say it's one of the better Japanese horror films. Infection, that's the favorite one that I would answer your question with. Game Night asks, I hope you read this. My question is, do you think your life would be different if you ever started, or if you never started to play video games, or if you were never introduced to them? Yeah, I think so. I often ponder whether or not video games are like a positive or a negative force in my life. because I dealt with like, addiction to World of Warcraft and playing that way too much to the point where I dropped out of college and had all kinds of problems and lost my job and just like basically became a giant shut-in, kind of like hikikomori type thing going on, where I would just like sit in my house all day ingesting food and hoping that the landlady wouldn't call me on my rent, just like a bunch of other shit, just basically, plugged into a world that I liked because I didn't like the real world. And aside from that, I played video games a lot my entire life. Like my entire life I played a lot of hours of video games, and sometimes I wonder, it gave me this career that I get to do for a little while, but at the same time, does that balance out like all the negative effects it had on my life? Not really sure, but I can definitely tell you the outcome probably would have been much, much different. Kyle Walker cut straight to the point. He had a big old batch of questions that were just like, damn, son, you trying to make me blush. So I'm going to go with one of the easy ones. How old were you when you lost your virginity? I think I was 15 or 16. 15 or 16, I think, on that one. But what I would say, so let's go ahead. I'm not just going to like leave that where it's laying right there. I would say that don't treat anything like that as a benchmark. I know when I was in high school, there was like this really overwhelming public push, like really peer pressure for everybody to just get laid as fast as possible. And I know a lot of people that made mistakes and like did it with people they shouldn't have and just sort of like accelerated the process in ways that they shouldn't have and kind of like wrecked things for themselves and just sort of, I think, ruined the magic of the first experience by just rushing into it because they didn't want to be embarrassed by being the only kid that hadn't done it yet. And I say let it happen organically, man. Just don't rush it, because I think that was the mistake that me and all my friends and my friends' generation did. Like, we treated it like it was like this target that you had to hit by the time you graduated. And so everybody just kind of acted a fool to make it happen. And in general, I think it probably would have been a lot better if it had just like happened at its own pace. And so there you go. Advice with Splat. I'm not just going to answer a question like that and then not follow it up with at least a little bit of something. Jen B says, I've been with your channel for a little while now, and you've mentioned some things in your awesome commentary about yourself that I can relate to a lot. I was wondering how you manage and organize yourself with all the work that you do, as I can't seem to manage or organize my way out of a paper bag most of the time. What's your secret? I don't really have one. All I can say is that as long as you don't do nothing, and so as long as you do something and you make sure that you try and get something done during the day instead of just sitting there dreading getting the something done, which is what I used to do when I was in college. I used to procrastinate so hard on projects and term papers and things like that because I would just like dread and have anxiety about starting them. And then once I started them, it just kind of flowed naturally and it all went perfectly fine. I think as long as you do something, it's okay. And then over time, I don't think it's ever something that you master. Like, still, I have days where I'm way behind schedule, at least once a week. Maybe once or twice a week. I pluralize, so I'll go twice a week. But I work 5 or 6 days a week. And I would say out of those, there's a pretty good chance that a significant percentage of them I'm behind schedule or I'm working on something that I need to get done that I should have had done like 2 hours ago. I don't think you ever like master it, so I don't think I have a secret. I think it's just practice and getting to know like how long a specific task takes versus this specific task. As you get better at editing and rendering and things like that, you can breeze through and you can edit a lot faster. It used to take me forever to make these video logs. Now I can breeze through and make a video log with recording in about an hour. It's not too difficult. And so I think it's just a learning process. You learn the things that go into the work that you do, and on top of that, you kind of learn the little places where you can gain efficiency. But at the end of the day, I mean, acts of God and things like that, sometimes stuff goes wrong, and I have an entire week where I'm just behind the 8 ball, hustling as hard as I can, trying to catch up for work I should have done on Monday, on Wednesday. So, I don't think I have a secret. I think that you just kind of get a little bit better at it, and then you try not to panic whenever, like, the big meteor strike comes in and throws all your work into disarray. KVFX Lone Wolf. Hey, Splat, every Q&A, it seems like you have at least one question where somebody asks you for help in their life. This has made me wonder how that makes you feel. Do you enjoy knowing that you're a figure of comfort to people? Has this helped your own issues with your past, your depression, your anxiety, knowing that as messed up as you think you are, people look up to you? And following that regard, how are you doing? Okay, so that's a big one right there. I'm going to start from the back and move to the front. As far as how I'm doing okay right now. I've actually reached like a zen period in my life right now where I think life has humbled me. I had a point where I was doing like 6 million views a month and the money was kind of flowing in, and you start to get like that little pride in the back of your mind. It's like, yeah, I'm a baller. And like I could tell I was starting to adopt that mindset like I was the shit or something. And then all of a sudden right after that, the channel just like crashed and like tanked by like 60% on everything. And I struggled with that a lot, like over the last 6 months, just really banged my head against the wall and was frustrated with it. And finally, I think I kind of went through, the steps of I think the steps of acceptance when it comes to like just things going wrong, where now I'm not really staring at numbers. I'm kind of just like letting things happen, and I'm just trying to enjoy myself as much as possible. Because running things the other way, where I ran the channel like a business, I basically burned myself out. I was anxious all the time. I couldn't focus on the work. I felt like I was always screwing up. I was getting mad at the way things were going. And then worst of all, I was feeling sorry for myself, which is bullshit. Anytime you're feeling sorry for yourself, that's a waste of an emotion. You should just not do it. It's a pitfall that really has no positive outcome. It's just a thing that for some reason we as human beings do, and it's all negative. And so right now lately I've had kind of this free floating period where I feel good, I feel fresh, I still feel very, worked. I feel like I'm doing a lot of stuff on a daily basis. I'm very busy, but I think I've accepted what's happened to the channel. I'm sort of just like dealing with the fact and just being okay with where things are at, and that maybe, someday I'm not going to be like this huge YouTuber or anything, and just learning to be happy with where I am right now. And I'm glad, because gaining a little bit of humility is never a bad thing. And so I've been humbled lately, and actually that would lead into the next thing. I mean, your question was, do you enjoy knowing that you're a figure of comfort to people? Actually, I feel a tremendous weight from it, because when I give advice, it's a scary thing, because that means I'm taking responsibility for somebody else's problems. And I don't know if that's the right way to phrase that. That sounds like they're giving it to me or something like that, but it adds responsibility to me, because until you say something and until you give advice, you're not on the line for, this other person's problems. But the second you give advice, if you give bad advice and it doesn't turn out well for them, it's now sort of your fault. Like, you threw your lot in right there, and so there's a weight that goes along with it. But, I'm glad that I can make people happy, because that was always one of my original goals. I always tell people that when they make a YouTube channel, they should make a mission statement of like what they want to do with their channel. And my channel was always just to like bring people enjoyment. Like, that's fine. As long as people are happy, I just keep printing out videos. And as long as the channel makes me happy, and as long as other people, if I'm making a positive impact in their life, I like that. That makes me feel good about what I do in life, which is why I try not to be super negative in my videos. I know it happens sometimes. I do have a temper, but sometimes I feel like there's a weight on top of me, and sometimes I feel like there's this weird kind of one-way glass thing going on when I interact with people, because they know everything about me, but I only know like this one tiny snippet about them. But I think all in all, this entire process has really been incredibly humbling, which is what I was leading back to. It's good to be humbled in life, and honestly, the people that contact me, like, you start to realize there are people in life that have problems that so greatly outweigh yours that you're just like, their problems are so huge that you're just like, well, damn, what am I even upset about right now? Compared to that, my life is going great. So I don't know, this dude needs help. Maybe I should, you get what I mean? Like, it puts things in perspective for you. It makes you realize that maybe you're kind of hyper focusing on things that are actually molehills, when in fact you think that they are mountains. And so I think that's a pretty good answer. I think that's about all I have to say about that, to quote Tom Hanks and Forrest Gump. Want to buy any name? Hey, Splattercat, I hope you're doing well. I am. I feel good right now. For my question, are you currently working with any YouTube network like Polaris, or are you a solo channel? In your answer, why? I am. I'm actually part of I'm part of a company called Screenwave Media. Very, very small company, which is why I like them, in fact. They're kind of like that small town representation where they have more time for the channels they represent, because there's only like 20 of us. We're all kind of in like the 150,000 subscriber range. But Screenwave Media is the people that I work with right now. They also represent James Nintendo Nerd and a couple of other channels, a couple other, like, I think, Screw Attack type deals. But other than that, they're a really, really small network, and I like them the best. I was with Curse Gaming, which is a huge network, and I like Curse. I have no problems with Curse. It was just a business decision for me to leave and be with Screenwave instead. In fact, if anything ever happened with Screenwave, I'd probably just be back with Curse, because I like both networks in their own way. They both provide for me in a way that I think that you can't do as a solo channel. So as a solo channel, I would be constantly dealing with copyright issues. I would be dealing with all kinds of just random stuff from YouTube's scanning system. In being with a network, it kind of gets rid of that. They offer me, sponsorship deals. They also finance the channel by kind of raising the ad rev that I get through other things. And so there's a max cap on the amount of ad revenue you can get when you're just representing yourself, because then YouTube just uses a default agency to sell ads on there. Whereas with Screenwave, they go through and they try to personalize the ads and they make them match better so that, people will actually be interested in the things at the front end of the video. It's not like a Tide commercial or something like that for like bleach or detergent. At least you're getting like movie commercials and things for like video games and stuff like that. And so at least it's somewhat entertainment relevant. And so I've always maintained that there are bad networks and there are good networks. And the ones that I like I've kept them close, and they've done very, very well for me. That's not to say there's anything wrong with going indie. Going indie is definitely a very satisfying experience, but I like having somebody around to kind of handle the organizational aspects of just like random deals and things that are coming through. Kind of like a barrier in between me and like the hordes of developers like throwing keys at me. It's nice to have like representation that can handle that, because sometimes it's just like, I wish I didn't have to deal with this. And then other times I wish I had a more personal touch. And so you can't get everything. That's the big thing when it comes to business. You can't have it all. You kind of just got to choose the best situation and run with it. Choose the best fuel for your jets and fly as far as you can. Termonter 27. What is your favorite heavy metal band of all time from any country? Whew, that's a tough one. I tend to be a fan of folk metal bands first, so a lot of like the Finnish bands and Norwegian bands, like the bands that get really, really rowdy with like the flutes and like the bagpipes and all kinds of stuff like that. My favorite heavy metal band of all time would probably be Moonsorrow. I really, really, really like Moonsorrow because they check all the boxes for me. I really like old Cradle of Filth. New Cradle of Filth I can palate and I can listen to, but I feel the same way about Dimmu Borgir. I like old music from them, but their newer stuff has become kind of mass marketed, I guess, in a little way. It's become very polished, and what I liked about Dimmu Borgir and Cradle of Filth as bands was when they first released their original albums, they were very campy. And even though it was all kind of like a big performance art type thing, it was still like goofy, but at the same time, the music was good, and they used like cheap synthesizers and stuff that really sort of added to their sound. The production values are too high with some of those bands nowadays, but Moonsorrow is probably my favorite one. I like Korpiklani a lot too, but Korpiklani, I feel like Korpiklani always has like singles, and then the rest of their album is just kind of like and I can't get into it, but their singles really, really, really bang. And so anyways, other heavy metal bands, my favorite band of all time is Megadeth, so I guess that would supersede. I've talked about that before though, but if we're talking like specific metal bands, and I can't choose Megadeth, I'd probably say Moonsorrow. I like Moonspell a lot too, although they haven't been around for a while. I don't think they make music anymore. There's a lot of those random bands out there that I liked. I liked Ragnarok. I didn't know what they were saying, because it could have been like the worst, most depraved musical subjecting ever, because it was all in a different language and I could never tell what they were saying. I like the drumming of Marduk. Like, sometimes I like to combine all the bands and just talk about like the things that I like. Like when it comes to guitar players, I like Sonata Arctica because Jani Liimatainen like bangs it out super hard. Like I've never heard like a Jani Liimatainen riff that I didn't like. But, you know, I'd probably stick with that. Tyrell Jennings says, "Hey, Splat, my question is, would you recommend working on YouTube to another person? It's kind of been something I want to do, and I feel like I talk to myself a lot when playing video games, but I'm not sure I'd be good at it." So, my advice that I would give here, he goes on to say that he's torn between YouTube and the military. What are your thoughts? Okay, I would say to do YouTube as a hobby and just find out if it's something you like, because as your channel gets bigger, you're going to be exposed to, like, when I started my channel and I had no subscribers or anything, and it was all me and it was all creative all day and I just got to do whatever I wanted all day. It was a very, very cool, very humanizing, I don't know, it felt very, very good to just create and, like, do stuff and just be like, I don't care if anybody likes it. And just because I had no fan base, I had no viewers, I had no nothing, and so it was just like, I'm going to do this and just throw it into the ether, and if something happens, great. Once you get a little further into your YouTube career, you're going to start to notice the little catches that come along with this. It becomes a lot less about playing games and making jokes, and it becomes a lot more business related. Like, you're going to start spending a lot of time in meetings, like making phone calls and on Skype and on emails and stuff like that, and it very much transitions into like a different beast as you grow. I've always maintained that YouTube is best done as a hobby, because it's a very difficult medium to make it in. There's so many, anybody can do YouTube. That's the thing. Anybody can cut a video and put it up on YouTube. And so channels like mine, I have trouble competing because all I have is like my commentary, and then everything else that I do is super rudimentary and simple. It's not like, you know, Naiga Haiga type stuff where they've got all kinds of like ridiculous, you know, special effects, and they spend a lot of time on like a 2-minute video. Like, it's just not, that's not what I do. I don't have the skill set for that. And so I have trouble competing. Even at my size, I struggle a lot. And YouTube is not a job where you have consistent paychecks. It's completely random depending on what the advertising companies sell your channel for every single month. On top of that, at any moment, the YouTube bubble could burst, and, you know, the guys that are like my size will all be back, you know, doing whatever job we were doing previously. And so I've always maintained that YouTube has a lot of what ifs in it. You should do it as a hobby. And if you can do it for a job for a little while, once you put in the time and the work and all that stuff, then that's cool, as long as you can pay your bills and be happy. But what I've learned is I put a lot of things in my life on hold to do YouTube full time before I should have. I should have waited a lot longer to go full-time on YouTube. And instead, when I got out of college, I was like, well, I got a job offer, but that requires me to move to the ass end of Nevada. I've got another job offer in Arizona. Or my channel is making a little bit over what I need to pay my bills. Maybe I'll just do that for a while. And so I did it too early. I probably should have gone with the job offer and did like 6 months in the industry while still YouTubing at the same time until things got settled. I always recommend you do it as a hobby. If you can do it for a little while as a job, that's cool, but still treat it like a hobby. I seriously doubt this is going to be a thing that's around 20 years from now. Like, I don't think I'm going to be filling my 401k up with profits from YouTube. I don't see it being a long-term career. I think someday the bubble's going to burst just like I did with the .coms. And unless you're YouTube royalty like PewDiePie or Markiplier or any of those guys that are huge, it's probably going to be curtains for the load of us that are below, 1 million subscribers. Fred Abercrombie asks, over your life, how many cats have you owned, including your current ones? I've probably had, well, I could talk you through them here. I've had, from a young age, we had Sabina. We had Dog Breath. Dog Breath was this outdoor cat that just, like, hung out at our house. Like, it was just a cat that lived underneath our house. And we fed it every day, and it basically became a pet, and we put a collar on it, but it still lived under our house. It was a weird, nappy, long-haired, semi-feral cat. But anyways, that explains the name. My dad named it Dog Breath because he didn't like it. And so he said if it was going to stay around, he was going to give it a name that was funny. And so after that, we had Francine. We also had Floyd. We had Jesse. I have Ollie. And then I have Maxwell, I guess. So that's going to be 7 cats that I have personally had since I was a kid. And then I've had 2 or 3 dogs for the dog people. I've had a Dalmatian. I had a Pomeranian. And I think that's about it for dogs, actually. I lived a little while with somebody that had a bunch of Chihuahuas, and so they lived in my house, and it was chill. But other than that, I've been thinking about getting an Australian Shepherd or like a Corgi or something recently, but apartment can't have it, so I gotta wait till my lease is up. Pancake Butterballs! Hey, Splat, who is your favorite Star Wars character? I really like Qui-Gon Jinn. He's probably one of the only positive things to happen from the prequels. I like Qui-Gon Jinn a lot, and I think it's just a combination of the fact that he's got, like, the beard and the Jesus hair. He's just, like, rocking it, and he always has, like, some kind of... I also like Liam Neeson, so there you go. That helps sell it a little bit deeper. I like how he always has the answers and things like that to questions, and if he doesn't, he always has some kind of, like, vaguely philosophical thing to say. At the same time, I like Mace Windu a lot. I like a lot of the characters that get introduced after. So after you get done with Luke Skywalker and the Yuuzhan Vong and all of them invade, there's a bunch of characters like during the Legacy period that I like a lot, but at this point it's been so long since I read all the graphic novels or whatever that I can't remember their names. And so unfortunately, can't really do much about that. That would be the favorite characters that I'd throw out there. And then Cameron, I almost got myself with a little hiccup right there. Camden Roberts has the last one for me. Stormcloaks or Imperials? Ooh, you picked a contentious issue for me. This is a question that gets me live. So anyways, I say Stormcloaks. Now, everything aside with Ulfric and all that, like everything aside, like we know that he works for the Thalmor and all that kind of stuff. Let's assume that he doesn't. I support the Stormcloaks over the Imperials. Because, for whatever reason, I don't know why this bothers me so much, but I've always played Nords. Since I got my first Elder Scrolls game, I've always played Nords as a character. I like the Nords. They've always been my favorite. They've always been the first group that I play every single time I get the game. And so in Skyrim, I was like, yeah, I finally have a game that is all Nords, and I get to immerse myself in the world, and it's going to be all Nord lore. It's going to be, everybody else is going to be secondary. Finally, my race gets their game. And so I like the Nords a lot, and as somebody that plays my character very much I role play with my own mindset of my character. Like, I try to imbue my character in the actions that he takes with the way that I would think through situations. You guys may have noticed that as I play through different RPGs on the channel, I kind of rationalize things through, and no matter what I pick for my character, I kind of play my character like myself. Like, those personality things that are inherent to me, I instill them into my characters. And so anyways, it just galls me for some reason that, like, some guy comes in, conquers your country, and then is just like, man, I'm gonna draft you and send you off to die in war whenever I want. You gotta pay me taxes and you do whatever I say, even though I'm on your land. That shit just annoys me, and I'm sorry, I can't get down with the Imperials. I could explain it further, and I could keep running off with it, but I think when I play a Nord, I become sort of nationalistic, and I can become very sort of just like, Nord for Nords. And I just get kind of upset by the fact that you've got the Imperials coming in and telling sovereign nations, like, what they should do with their own place on the map. I don't accept that. I'm like, nope. you all need to leave. If the Nords decide to be on the same side as the Imperials, we will make that decision. You will not come in and, like, put bases all over the place. Not okay with that. Your outfits, you guys wear skirts. We have super awesome fur kilts and more awesome armor than you. Not really seeing the benefit to looking all Roman and whatnot. I'm gonna stick with the Nordland that I know, the Skyrim that I deserve. And so anyways, Stormcloaks. Definitely Stormcloaks, excluding the fact that the Thalmor are in with, like, everybody, and I just don't like the Thalmor at all either. So, that's gonna be our Q&A for the week. Thank you for hanging out with me. It's always fun to do these videos. It's always a little bit of catharsis at the end of my week. And so I will see you all in the next episode. I hope you guys liked it. Make sure you leave questions down below. Keep me well stocked. You guys did a great job last week, giving me tons and tons and tons of questions to answer. I know I missed a week last week. That's because I got sick. I had the flu, and I just wasn't feeling up to it. And I was just like, And by the time I started to feel better, I was just not in the mood, and it was too far gone. I was like, I'll just do it next week. It'll be fine. And so anyways, I will see you all later. Thank you for joining me. If you wanted to support the channel, I got the Patreon links and all that stuff down below. Obviously, there are rewards and things you get for doing those. This is the only time I'll talk about it, though, is at the end of video logs. So I will see you all later. Hi to everybody.